Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
I'm Jazz.
And it's Sherrie.
And this is Giving Up the Ghost podcast. Welcome to our first inaugural episode.
First one ever.
Show. I don't know what you'd label this. We're going to banter and talk. And our main goal each week, we would like to cover, explore, share our research of unexplained paranormal phenomenon in Winnipeg and surrounding areas. So we actually would love for you to join us. We consider ourselves audio-curators, and we want to discover the dark side of our local history, urban legends, and their haunting origins, as well as everything else that goes bump in the night. Are you afraid of the dark? Well, you should be.
Yes, you should.
And we drink while we do this podcast. And we swear like sailors.
A little bit.
That's okay. So, Cher.
Yes. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, one of the topics we want to discuss, we're going to be talking a little bit about Hamilton House.
Hamilton House.
Yes.
So do you think that's one of the most famous places in Winnipeg?
I am obsessed with Hamilton House. I can't tell you why, but it's quite the location. And the thing that's kind of sad is a lot of people in Winnipeg probably drive past this and they're not aware of the historical reference it holds within the paranormal community here in North America and probably around the world.
Yeah, right in Winnipeg. Good old Winnipeg.
Love Winnipeg. So basically our point, what we're trying to focus on is stories here locally, haunted houses, haunted locations. Spooks. Unexplained phenomenon, like I said. And especially in outlying areas like...
country, rural places... places that have had really evil things happen to them
really
that
bad
we don't know
things.
about.
Right.
Yeah, those stories that are family stories that are actually really true that no one knew.
Mm-hmm. We're not going to discover or discuss anything actually new or, how you'd say, anything amazingly
no revelations.
Stark revelations. We're not religious, so don't worry.
No.
That ain't
no
going to happen.
Here.
Mm-mm. So basically we're in for a ride and we'd like you guys to join us.
Absolutely.
How about that?
Yay.
Excellent.
Nice.
We don't take ourselves too seriously.
No, not usually.
No. We were funnier before this started recording and we're like, damn, should have put that on
we
there.
should have just been listening all the time to ourselves. Oh well.
That's okay. But in any event, I know I've seen a lot of really, really weird, unexplainable things. I've felt a lot of really, really weird things. I'm currently... Not like I'm doing like advertising here or anything, but I'm currently writing a book called Creepy Me. I'm detailing my...
And she's an awesome writer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Detailing my encounters with the paranormal. I'm hoping to get my dad on here as well because he's got some really weird stories. He's from Woodridge, Manitoba, so there's a lot of creepy shit going on out there. And that's just it. Like if there is anything... anybody out there wants us to explore within Winnipeg or surrounding areas?
Absolutely. Give us a shout.
That's right. We have an email address. We're located at Giving Up the Ghost podcast at gmail.com.
Absolutely.
We're on Twitter now. We're also on Facebook. Love Facebook. That's how me and Sherrie reconnected after all these years. Love Facebook. So as well too... we'd like to thank Joel. He is actually the founder of NPN, which is the paranormal network we're a part of. We gladly thank him for embracing us and bringing us on board.
Thank you very much.
And so here we are.
Couple of girls hanging out.
Hanging out, alcohol in hand. You're drinking a Clamato. I got a homemade wine.
Yeah, we're good. We'll be talking about some interesting
spirits, because we're talking about spirits.
Yeah.
We're hoping this episode comes out. Our inaugural episode comes out January 21st is what we're shooting for. Typically once a week, every Monday. Joel's making it possible for us to be reached on quite a few locations. Stitcher, podcast. Oh, geez, I've should have wrote this down because I'm drinking. Crap, Sergeant. In any event,
we can edit that in.
We can edit that out, or edit it in. So I hope you join us every week for our enlightenment of different topics. And again, if there is anything that you want to know about, you want us to investigate. And when I say investigate, not as much paranormal investigating, but we do plan on doing research. Yeah, like archives, anything that you've hit rock bottom as far as like finding out stuff. We kind of want to delve a little deeper.
We like to dig.
We plan on doing remotes, especially from Sherrie's house, because Sherrie...
I have a friend that likes to visit once in a while.
In the closet, and
in the
it comes
closet,
out...
Yes, he likes to come in my closet. Oh, creepy, but
it's all good.
But he's a friend, so...
But because it's a friend and it's a spirit, you know, of course, there is no fear there whatsoever.
No.
So, in any event, I guess that's a little bit about us. Well, actually, no. Tell us, share. What's attracted you to the dark side, the other side?
What's attracted me to the dark side? This is a really long question. I don't know exactly. It's just been something that's been with me for a long time.
You've spent lots of times in the country.
Spent lots of time in the country. Lots of stories about spooky things that have happened. Actually, things that have happened. Let's say when I was very young and we lived on a reserve.
Mm-hmm.
We've even had things that were sort of spiritual that came to
very
beliefs,
spiritual.
Yes, beliefs in native culture. Seen a lot of stuff like that.
You had an alien encounter too, did you not?
I did have an alien encounter too. Yeah, I was probably about maybe 7 or 8. Saw lights. So with a chicken coop.
So we'll have to save that for an upcoming episode.
Because that was really cool. My father thinks that we're all insane, but it is true. My mother saw it.
So this is the kind of stuff we want to explore, especially in Manitoba, because it's such an old province with so much rich history, especially Winnipeg. And I think at time, wasn't it compared to Little Chicago at some point?
Oh, absolutely. We've had monsters
Murder.
Here.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
People have smuggled stuff through Manitoba out in the country that way.
Oh, that's right, too. Bootleggers, yeah.
Yes.
Al Capone, I believe, came up here. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're a city, a province with a lot of connections, like internationally, locally, North America.
All things.
Well, we are the middle of North America.
Absolutely, dead center. And plus, we're so close to the States, so there are people that jump back and forth. It's so easy without remote access that no one knows. So
I even remember, without going into too much detail during this episode, I do remember, I've gone probably, I'm not sure if I had told you, aside from this podcast, I've probably been like on 6 different ghost tours.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And the first ghost tour, and I was going to do a little research before we recorded this episode, but there was a gentleman back, I would probably say in the early 2000s, and he had run a ghost tour called Ghost to Ghost or Coast to Coast. It was play off on that, on the broadcast. And, you know, he had so many cool ghost stories, but mostly though, he kind of interwove it with like history in the city, and I mean that's like kind of like the foundation of what everything comes from. And I know he had touched on how there was a serial killer from down in the States that made his way up to Winnipeg, and he was actually caught in the southern part of the province before he headed back to the States.
Everyone's trying to smuggle through that way, I know.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, unfortunately with fatality and sad history, you get ghosts.
Happens.
That's right. So, well, anyway, today, our main featured story for the day, I've done a little discussion or done a little history research. Like I had said, I want to discuss Hamilton House. So, hey, Sherrie.
Yes.
Do you have a spare $460,000 kicking around?
Let me check my back pocket. No, not today. Sorry.
Because have I got a deal for you? Would you be interested in a freestanding 2.5-story mixed-use building housing a long-standing landmark? It's a homeopathic medical educational center. It's now for sale.
Oh, boo.
Located on the highly visible corner on Henderson Highway and McIntosh Avenue and right across from Hespeler Avenue. You can work, live, and rent another unit for extra income. Main floor, retail office. Second floor, 3rd bedroom apartment, and an extra 1-bedroom penthouse. Ooh, glamorous. Ooh. Parking for 6 to 7 cars, plus additional street parking on the side of the building. Large welcoming front and porch. And spirits.
Yay, for
Lots
spirits.
and lots of spirits. And what I'm talking about again is Hamilton House.
Hamilton House, yes.
So basically, did I mention one of Winnipeg's oldest and most haunted cemeteries, like Elmwood Cemetery, just a half block up the highway?
That's convenient.
In fact, you can actually see the cemetery from Hamilton House. It's like a gift that keeps on giving, really. Really, it is. Have you ever been into
I've never
Elmwood?
actually been there, no.
Oh, I have.
Did you? Yeah.
Holy
okay.
shit balls.
Did you go in the basement?
Shit my pants. What?
Did you get to go in the basement when you were there?
Well, I didn't go into Hamilton House, but I mean like the cemetery.
I would like to go in the basement in Hamilton House. They did surgeries down there.
I know.
That's insane.
Freaky.
I know.
Freaky. But I mean, it was at the turn of the century. They really didn't have a lot of hospitals. The hospitals were mostly for teaching.
Still, though, you'd think, hey?
And I don't think Medicare was like our feature of,
No.
you know,
free
so you
healthcare.
had to pay. So it's like, psst, hey
Yeah,
bud,
no, hey,
come
hey,
over here. I'll
come
take your
in my
epidemics
basement.
out. Yeah. So, yeah, like the Elmwood Cemetery, I had been on one of the ghost tours and like, holy crap, it does not end. Like you go in there and they have roads and you go in there and I know, okay, granted it's pitch blackness, but it's so far back. It goes so far back. You get to a point where you can't even see Henderson Highway anymore.
No.
You can't even hear the sounds of the traffic. It's
That's
really
crazy.
freaky. So can you imagine all those spirits,
Wow, that's a lot of people. Oh,
buried just like a half block from Hamilton House where they're actually contacting spirits?
I know.
It's like a highway of a different
there
sort.
you go.
Highway to hell.
Yeah, maybe you never know.
Highway to heaven.
I never know. Stairway to heaven, highway to hell. Right?
Yeah.
Anticipated people, right?
So basically, thousands of Winnipeggers have driven past this location at 185 Henderson Highway, a fabulous structure demanding respect, and yet I'm sure not many realize the relevance it plays in the Winnipeg's haunted landscape. So basically, built around 1907 approximately-ish. It was kind of hard to find a lot of details on that, but most of the houses around there were built around that time. The house at 185 Kelvin Street, now known as 185 Henderson Highway. I'm like, oh my God, I learned something new. I had no idea. It became further known as the Hamilton House in 1910 when Presbyterian, that's pretty good after 3 glasses of wine. Presbyterian Scott physician Dr. Thomas Glendenning Hamilton, better known as TG.
Much better.
I would not get through this, I tell you. He purchased the home for his family, consisting of his wife Lillian and 1-year-old daughter Margaret. His second son, Glenn Forrester Hamilton, was born in 1911, who as well had become a doctor himself. But Dr. T.G. Hamilton was the first physician in Elmwood. He specialized in internal medicine and obstetrics. And did his rounds by bicycle and then by horse and buggy, and only later on an open-topped touring car. Which is pretty cool, I can imagine. Even now by today's standards, that's pretty good for Elmwood today. Sorry.
Terrible.
Sorry, Elmwood.
We didn't mean that.
No, I love Elmwood. I've spent a lot of time there. I think I lived there for a time too.
Did you?
I did.
I didn't.
I don't want to discuss that. It was
No.
a
It was a bad time.
bad boyfriend, bad time. Bad time.
Bad time.
Not good at all. So basically, Dr.
Did
T.
he have not have, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
that's
did
fine.
they have a son as well
He did, yes.
that died when he was like 3 or something?
Yes.
That's right, from the flu.
He
Not
did.
a great way to start.
And that's that's he basically that's what basically that's the basis for his start and involvement in actually conducting psychic experiments.
That's how it all began, eh?
Yeah.
Well,
So-
sometimes that happens, right?
It does.
Yeah.
So basically, T.G. Hamilton, he taught school in Winnipeg. He put himself through medical school and obtained his MD degree in 1903 from the Manitoba Medical College, which is now known as the Medical School of University of Manitoba. Shortly after, he met his wife Lillian May Forrester, who graduated from the Winnipeg General Hospital School of Nursing, which is now known as the University of Manitoba, in 1905, and then they married in 1906. So basically, the Hamilton House served as a residence and as a doctor's office for Dr. T.G. Hamilton. The offices were on the main floor, and like you said, surgery was in the basement.
Crazy.
With its own entrance from the street.
I know, crazy.
Sketchy.
Back door surgery, no problem.
Hey, bud.
Especially obstetrics. That doesn't fare well.
And that covers a lot of areas.
Exactly. I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then the living quarters were upstairs. So basically, with T.G. Hamilton's background, he held a lot of respectable positions.
Absolutely.
He was renowned, I guess, across Winnipeg. He was elected to the Winnipeg School Board.
Yeah.
3 years later, I guess he was also elected as the Elmwood constituents to be the Liberal member of the Manitoba Legislative Assembly in 1916.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the same year that Lillian had given birth to twin boys, Arthur Lamont and James Drummond, which is who you had alluded to before.
Yeah.
But like we had mentioned before, devastation hit the family hard on January 27th, 1919, when one of the twin boys, Arthur, he died at age 3 from the influenza, the outbreak at the First World War. And it was thought that it was thought because of the life-altering event, the death of his toddler son had propelled Dr. T.G. Hamilton into the psychic field.
Yeah.
To some degree, T.G. Hamilton, Dr. T.G. Hamilton, felt as though he was being punished by the Lord for some reason, because he was very, very religious,
and he was very attached to that child.
And he was He was
such a good boy. He was like very one of those like high-end children, I think.
Yes.
From what I've researched, they said that he was like extremely attached to him. I don't know.
Yeah, and from other research that I had read as well, I guess, not that he was the favorite son, but because he was such a...
always a favorite, yeah.
No.
No, apparently there
No,
is.
they're all... I have 2. They're all special in their own unique way.
I have 1. He can only be special.
If I had 10, they'd be all special.
Yeah.
And then if I had 10, I'd have to just give them numbers and forget names. Yeah. I think I do that now. But basically, can you imagine how sad that would be for a doctor?
Horrible.
At that time, you're top in your field, right? You have everything going for you, and then you can't do anything.
Not a damn thing, I know.
Because of
Spanish flu, right? I mean, a lot of people died at that time, right?
Right, especially after First World War, because they brought it with them.
I know, exactly. Here, go home and take this shit with you when you go, right?
Exactly.
I know.
So basically, he thought the Lord was punishing him, and...
And he probably wanted to see why this is happening.
Yeah. And his grief was so insurmountable. I guess he felt he had lost a beautiful little boy, as we all would. Mm-hmm. And then he pondered in his mind, he goes, where had the soul gone?
Exactly. He said, where was he?
Where was he?
That. Yeah, where did he go?
Where was he? Because that wasn't... Death was not an answer for Dr. T.G. Hamilton. So basically the next year... unfortunately, in his successful life in the public eye, he'd lost his re-election to become Elmwood's MLA. Mm-hmm. He was defeated. But that wasn't the end of his successes. That same year, he was also named as a Fellow of the American College of Surgeons.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? He's a well-respected, very smart man.
For that time, that time frame.
And crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also started the Manitoba Medical Review, and he became its first editor as well. Mm-hmm. He also became president of the Manitoba Medical Association and the first president of the University of Manitoba Alumni Association. Like, this guy was busy.
He was busy. He was very busy.
He was very busy.
He was very busy and very smart.
Like, I mean...
Very respected.
This isn't the time of the computers. Like, this was all, like, researched and, like, hardcore studying and everything goes with it. Yeah. So, basically, again, with him being all dignified and professional-like and whatever... Mm-hmm. All the while, he was still searching for his lost child, and he was still very first and foremost on his mind. And that is what took his turn into the interest into the psychic research. But it did not interfere or tarnish his medical practice.
No, never.
No, he made sure he kept both separate and private, and he ensured his research, never really kind of got out till about 1926 or so. He discreetly wrote and held private lectures about the psychic field. Which again came out in 1926. And then that's when he went public. He had delivered a lecture on his research on telekinesis. Mm-hmm. I guess I should have some more wine because I pronounced that pretty good.
That was really good, yeah. I know.
But he actually brought this to like the Medical Society.
I know. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy?
Like,
Can you imagine? He was brave enough to do that at that time. Because no one else was doing that.
Take a chance like that's a big chance.
That's like throwing it in, man.
That's right.
Go ahead, cojones.
Like, would that be comparable today? I would say coming out. No, that wouldn't be like coming out.
No, not even coming out, man.
I don't think there's any standards now.
No, there is none.
What can I do now?
Do pretty much anything these days. I don't think there's
joining
anything.
A circus. What's comparable?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Something that would put your reputation on the line, basically, right? All your years of learning, and it's just throwing this shit out there and going, hey, people.
Like, nowadays, there's no comparison. Back then.
No.
Like, that was big.
Oh, huge.
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 Now you can get on a computer and Google anything now.
Exactly.
You want to know what it looks like when a dog rollerblades? There you go. You can... You know what I mean?
That'd be comparable like my dog picking up its shit in the backyard.
Exactly. Without
my God.
Without...
Or my dog friending the rabbits.
Oh, yeah. Good. Without eating them.
My God. Without eating them or tearing them apart like a stuffed rabbit or a stuffed toy. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
So, like in 1918, there was a person by the name of Dr. William Talbot Ellison, and he was an English professor at the Wesley College, and that would be now the University of Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. So he is the one responsible for introducing Dr. T.G. Hamilton and his wife Lillian to something called Patience Worth phenomenon, and that involves spiritual communication and inspiration through the Ouija board and other means based on the mediumship of a person by the name of Pearl Lenore Pollard Curran of St. Louis, Missouri. Do I get a star every time that I pronounce these things right?
It is very good.
I would think. Anyway. So in many documents, Dr. T.G. Hamilton's son, Dr. Glenn Hamilton, described the family's use of the Ouija board. So that was sort of like kind of like how it came out. Mm-hmm. And in future episodes, I will tell you about my experience with the Ouija board, and I do not recommend using one of those things.
My God, I have them in my house.
Ever. You have Ouija boards in your house?
I have small ones, and my son makes me make them for him.
Oh, well, I don't know. Do you think that has a spiritual connection?
I don't know. It just sort of started a few years ago, and all of a sudden he wanted me to start making him Ouija boards. So I had to start cutting them out of cardboard and actually making them with little planchettes and everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is the big board game maker? Wilfred Bradley? I don't think they have Satan like blessing everyone as it comes off the production line. You know, blah, 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 and packaged done. Blah, 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 packaged done. But I mean, like Ouija board.
Yeah, no, seriously, they were really.
But has he played with them?
Yes, he has. Him and his friends have actually sat around and tried to like call spirits.
And you wonder why your closet's open?
This was pre-closet opening.
Pre-closet opening.
Pre-closet opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I know. Apparently he talked to some guy. I don't know who he was, but yeah. I don't know.
Oh, creepy.
I never really asked him. I didn't want to go into detail just to get his little brain going.
I follow quite a few Facebook. Yeah, I'm addicted to Facebook. Getting to know me, getting to know you. I am addicted to Facebook. But I'm a member of quite a few of those groups. Mm-hmm. And I will rarely comment or respond to anything, especially like, do you see an orb in this picture? Yeah. Do you see a face in this picture? It's all perspective, right?
I know, it is really, yeah.
But then when they start saying, does anybody believe in Ouija boards? And then I'm like, hell no. With everybody else that says, hell no, hell no, hell no, hell no.
Put them away.
So
really? This is a bad thing?
I had a really bad experience.
Yeah.
And I heard of a few other really spooky bad experiences.
Really? I haven't yet.
Yeah. Later issues. Later episodes. So anyway, but so again, Dr. T.G. Hamilton's son, Dr. Glenn Hamilton, he described the family's first use of the Ouija board around the time of the First World War. And he referenced an Elizabeth Pooley.
Yes. She was very prominent in a lot of stuff that happened. She was the Scots, right?
She had a very thick Scottish brogue.
Yeah, she was a neighbor, right?
And apparently she was also described as a nanny of sorts somehow.
Oh, I know. I think she was a neighbor, but she was Yeah. So I just wonder if she's like a little instigator and some stuff.
Well, I think they thought she was pretty legit, so that's why they invited her in and stuff.
Okay.
I don't think they were gullible or naive at that point, But,
But you know, people bring traditions with them, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, sure. And I think because they were Scottish and she was Scottish.
They felt comfortable.
And maybe at that point, too, they also felt whether or not she was fake.
Yeah.
I think they would know.
Oh, you would hope, right?
You would hope.
I know, yeah.
Sure.
Well,
it's like gaydar.
Not like they're like...
right? Like gaydar, fake gar. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, what do I have here? So basically, this kind of propelled the Hamiltons to do further investigation into the afterlife led by Dr. T.G. Hamilton. He set up a separate room on the second floor of the Hamilton house to conduct his psychic research. And during his investigations, T.G. Hamilton had used the Ouija board. The reason why I say T.G. Hamilton versus because Glenn Hamilton was also a doctor, so I'll just say Dr. T.G.
Doctor.
Just to separate the two.
Yeah.
So basically, some of his devices he used the Ouija board, table tipping.
Yeah, they did some weird table thing.
He constructed something too.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Table wrapping, table flipping, bell box ringing, bell box cables, supernormal lights, automatic writing, scripts, deep trance drawings, direct voice communications from deceased persons, and dictatorial spirit guides, also trance personalities and ectoplasmic constructions, which is something you're going to tell us a little about after this.
Really,
So basically, about 1920, Dr. T.G. and his wife Lillian became involved in table rapping, which is the listening for table raps to provide yes or no answers to questionings similar to those of previously posed by the Ouija board. The involvement in table rapping led to other table-related phenomenon, namely table tipping, table moving, and table flipping. I want to interject here.
Interject away.
So, again, in my book called Creepy Me, I actually have a story about how I did table tipping.
You did table tipping?
I did during a ghost haunt.
Cool.
And it blew my mind.
Really?
My other friend James was with me. We went for his 50th birthday. And it was actually at, of all places, the hotel downtown. The Fort Garry Hotel. Very infamous. Spooky. And we took part in this. And it was legit. Like, the things I saw with this table, like, there was just no way somebody could actually make this table rotate and, if I dare say, dance across the dance floor.
No shit.
With 4 people like attached to it. Seriously? And it was almost like it was dancing and swirling, and it was going so fast that people on each of the 4 sides, they could not even keep up with it.
It's like the Harry Potter thing, like something spinning around. And...
Yeah, like it was like, and I mean, I had done a little bit of the table.
A tour?
It was a tour.
Cool.
Very hard to find. I think they're called now Square Pig Tours. I'll give them a shout out.
Yeah.
Kristen is her name, I believe. Excellent. Like,
cool.
I love the more specific tour when it focuses in on one location. They have a lot of tours where they hit like 3 or 4 in a night, which is great.
Yeah.
And you get a feel for the history and everything. But that night with Kristen was amazing. There's only like 16 of us, and we were like you know, and we covered every place. A lot of the places in the phenomenon we discussed within the tour of the Fort Garry Hotel, and the table tipping, like, yeah, sure, the ballroom was kind of darkened and stuff, and I didn't catch anything on film. All I had was a flip phone at that time. Oh my god. I'm so embarrassed. Oh my god, my children would just curl up and die if I admitted I had a flip phone. But in any event, like, it was just amazing how this table swirled, and you know, we just maybe about 20 minutes, everybody took a turn at the table, and me and James had taken a turn, and it lifted and stuff. And, you know, honestly, it was heavy enough of a table, a card table, if you will. I would say like maybe 15 pounds.
Yeah.
That to lift it with the tips of your fingers.
It's not like you're going to get up and run around with it or anything.
No. Like, exactly. I could see if you're staying in one spot and it twisted a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But no, like, this shit was flying around the dance floor.
That's
like,
insane.
I'm like, are you seeing what's happening? And he's like, oh my god, like, what's going on here? I'm like, I don't know. Like, best like $50 I ever spent.
Awesome.
Again, alas, no videotaping. I know. But anyway, so I do believe in this to a certain extent.
Yeah, well, that's really cool though.
Yeah. So basically, going back to my story. Of particular importance, Dr. T.G.'s investigations into the psychic world was at the time, about 1920, when they were introduced. It was Dr. T.G. Hamilton, Lillian, and Mrs. Poole.
Mrs. Poole.
They became introduced. I guess it was a popular parlor game at that time, in that era of the table tipping. It was thought that it was like an alphabet was verbally repeated, the table would stop tipping, and then when the correct letter was reached in time, you know, a series of letters could then be expected to spell a message. And then on the first occasion, in dim light, the table began to move. It tilted up with 2 legs and finally spelt out a meaningful message. And then this event impressed Mrs. Hamilton, Lillian, to the point where she continued to work with Mrs. Poole to develop her surprising psychotic there's a line, people, psychic abilities further. So I guess then at that point, later on, Dr. T.G. took over from Lillian, and he was not only successful at moving the table, but flipping the table as well. And then one particular evening, I guess the table rose up on its 2 legs. Lillian could not force it down. And then after considerable effort, Dr. T.G. Hamilton pushed it down with what he estimated to be about 50 pounds of pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did read that as well.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Can you imagine that? I'd be like, I'd be running for the door.
I find it interesting that they do
Flyway
this stuff
table.
way back when. Like, you know what I'm like, we do this now today.
Yeah.
We would have, like, a camera in every corner of the room, you know, and people
Yeah.
doing stuff, and they were still inventive enough.
I'd be like, fuck this, you're on your own. Good night.
Just leave the table. I don't need the table anyway. Who needs a table?
Put the for sale sign on the house.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Is that right?
I can't
Maybe that's
take
why they're
it.
selling now.
Oh, freaky.
I know.
I'd love to know what happens there. Actually,
I would really too.
there is...
Could you go for the open house tour?
Can I go pretend like I'm going to go buy it?
Yeah. No shit, Sherlock.
Put a monocle on with my top hat and my
No,
cane?
really? Like,
Hello?
hello? I've come to look at your house.
Oh, pennies.
Hey, we could do-
460,000.
Hey, let's open a holistic place.
I don't want to touch people.
We could just sell holistic drugs and stuff.
I don't want to have to touch people. That's too much
We
trouble.
just sell them like little things of arsenic and things. And
Oh, that's killing.
They have
Well, there's a
that.
cemetery across the street. I know a person or two that owns a shovel.
No, can whip up some stuff. They do.
Shit
We used to
happens.
sell homeopathic things. They have arsenic in it. They have everything in them.
Oh my god.
For real. No shits in for reals.
You're scaring me.
I know, but it's true.
Oh my god.
I used to read the ingredients on there going, why are people not dying from this? Oh, but it's only like 0.002%.
Almost did a spit take. Oh my god. Let's up it. Let's see what happens.
Let's just up that a bit.
Anyway, this is not a murder podcast.
No,
by the way.
no, sorry, no.
This is an after the
We
fact.
are happy people.
Happy, joy. So from what I read on my investigation and stuff, basically, as per his son, Dr. Glenn Hamilton, he had said that his dad had took plywood and he built a cabinet, 3-sided vertical box, open on one side, and then on the front he put a roller blind on end, and it had like a netting in it, about 5 feet high. Oh god, the dog is killing a rabbit.
Out all of a sudden.
There was a hook here, and then he said that when you put the psychic table in there, the psychic table was all made of wood, there was no metal used in its construction. And Mrs. Pooley would put her hands on the table to charge it with energy. And then the other sitters would hold on to reinforce it.
Okay,
and then
I'm charging right now.
And then I am going to...
You are messaging?
I am
table.
messaging somebody to kick the dog outside to go like eat a rabbit.
Go eat the rabbit. Go eat the rabbit.
Let's see here. Can you put the dog outside?
And bring my friend a drink.
Oh my god. All right. Wonderful. First what podcast? So professional. So basically, there was no metal. I guess the whole point of making this box was because then that way it had no metal used on the construction. So then that way it was like legit. So then there was no tampering, just pure wood. Mrs. Pooley, again, like I said, she would put her hands on the table to charge it with energy. Other sitters would hold on to reinforce the charging. Oh, did you get your chill? Like something walked through you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did you see that?
I did see that.
Holy shit, man. That was weird.
I do have a lot of my grandparents' stuff in this room.
Do you? Oh, awesome.
Or in this
first
house.
I was holding onto the light from your departed person, and now I'm like...
I have a selenite lamp here that my friend had in his apartment before he passed in June, and Sherry's been touching it a lot.
Yeah.
So you're touching Terry.
I know, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry,
I'm sure he'd enjoy it.
Maybe
That's fine.
yeah, okay.
I'm sure he likes that. That's all right. Just don't start stroking the lamp, okay? This is not one of those podcasts.
No.
There's a podcast called...
It's warm.
Oh, I won't discuss other podcasts.
No, let's not.
Pretty funny,
Let's
though.
not talk about other
No,
podcasts.
it's a pretty funny podcast. Something about my dad made a porno. Oh my god. Okay, sorry. Back to work.
Back to Mrs.
So basically, his dad would then draw a net across the face of it. I think I'm repeating myself. I am so sorry. He had a flash camera. I may edit this out once I figure out the editing. Sober editing, by the way. This was done all in the dark. Now, the table could be heard to charge forward and bulge the net a way out, as though it was trying to escape. And it was thought that this is what got Dr. T.G. Hamilton interested, is what his son said. And he had said that it was some kind of a psychic force working there. So basically, Dr. T.G. and a group of people who had similar interests would gather to take part and regularly witnessed and documented the construction and appearance of teleplasms, which is a manifestation of cloud-like faces, bodies, and objects. Most of the work was accomplished between 1928 and 1935. Over 1,000 trance periods were held in the darkened room on the second floor in the Hamilton house.
It's creepy. See those pictures?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Did you see those pictures?
You know what? Some of them were debunked, though, eh?
I know. I could tell some of them were debunked.
Some of them...
Still, though, if you think about it for the time.
At the time, they didn't have...
frame. There's not like I could... Like Photoshop my face on a horse's ass or anything. Like, I mean, they're like,
because one would do that.
I'm sorry, no, but some of them are really kind of cool.
Exactly,
like creepy cool.
Or face swap.
Yeah, face swap. Yeah, I can face swap.
A woman did that with her nipple last week, and I saw it, and I'm like, what the hell?
A nipple head or a face nipple?
A little bit of both.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That's a different thing for a different time.
Oh my
God. No, can't even. Okay.
No, but these pictures, this is Mrs. Poole, the Poole. She's the one that did these things.
Yes.
So it was primarily through her, right?
It was primarily to her.
She was like the medium in between, right?
Exactly.
Oh my God, I'm crying now. Thanks a lot, Charles.
So they were seeing within the Dr. TG's wooden cabinet, the one that he made himself, and then said a specific change occurred in the formation and direction of the Hamilton research at that point, because at this point they've got something that was never really done before. So basically, during that time, they were able to master different methods, and Dr. T.G. Hamilton, he found another capability of Mrs. Poole. More specifically, she was able to go into a spontaneous deep trance, I guess like a channeling effect. And because of his background as a physician, Dr. T.G. Poole performed many measures or measurements on her performance in various psychological states, including automatic writing, which was the continuous longhand scripts.
I've seen a lot of those. Those are really
written supposedly without conscious control.
Yeah.
We should try that.
Other things. I've seen those. Those are pretty cool. Have you ever done that yourself? Have you ever done that yourself? I have.
You know what?
Ages ago. I mean, mind you, I was probably like in my 20s when I did it, but...
Here's a little thing about me, a sidebar. You know, I have so much going on at any given time with my life. I'd probably start writing to-do lists.
Sit down all the time anyway.
I'd probably start subconsciously like, and then I gotta paint this, and then I gotta do laundry, and then I gotta buy this, and I gotta return this to like Canadian Tire.
Brain,
I know. But knowing me, I'd be like, what?
Yeah,
to-do list?
Be like, what?
What the fuck?
Really? Do you want to do laundry again?
Again? What do you mean I gotta take things to...
I know, I have tried that though.
Have you?
It's interesting, I have.
Yeah.
Ages ago, I think when I was at university, I did, we did.
You know what I'd like to try and do? And I think I'll do it in here, because we're in our podcast... Cave? Is that what we're going to call it? Our podcast?
I like
it's very soothing, it's very...
not a cave, but a den.
Podcast den?
Yeah, it's a den.
Sure. How about you people tell us what you want us to call our
Absolutely.
podcast environment? It's very tranquil, it's very...
Cozy,
you know.
Full of stuff and odds and sods.
But what
warm lights that I keep
nice lights, mood lights for the ambiance.
Yeah.
I'm all about the ambiance.
Absolutely.
But what I'd like to really try is water scrying. You know, the water where you take a bowl of water. It's like mirror. You know, this is what Nostradamus used to do. He used to look into a mirror or into a bowl, and then he would get visions, and then he would write that down. I'd like to try that and see what would happen.
Oh, visions. Visions are cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Lots of visions. I used to write about all my visions on Facebook, and then people I thought hated them, so I quit.
I know, and that's kind of like why I started writing that book, Creepy Me, because like nobody can tell me that didn't happen.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did a writing group. I went to... Oh, this is a totally off topic again.
Oh my God. Whatever. We cut and paste.
How long have we been talking for?
Forever.
Oh my God. So much for that 22 mark.
Yeah.
We'll go...
well.
It's our inaugural. We'll go like an hour? I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see.
I was part of a writer's group one time, and you know, you're supposed to write from the soul, you're supposed to write what you feel, and then other people judge you, they critique you, whatever, right? And then
how can you critique a soul?
I know. And then I had the story about basically a woman who exacted revenge on her school teacher because he potentially might have molested her, or shall we use the word rape, or whatever, right?
Yeah,
and she was having visions and was coming back. It was a quaint little, you know,
story.
1,200 word story or whatever. And then this guy that was a lawyer that was in the writers group, he says, I don't think that's very good that you're on about rape because, you know, like, and I'm thinking, because that shit doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway.
Because what? He would have to fend
someone. Come on. God forbid that does happen in the real world.
Yeah.
Shake your head loose. Anyway, so basically, they came across all these different uses for Mrs. Poole. They documented it, but then something even stranger started to happen. As quoted by his son, Dr. Glenn Hamilton, regarding the initial use of the Ouija board in the second floor investigation room, undoubtedly, they say, 99% of the results were gotten, could have been, with anybody else, fraudulent or people fooling around. But mother and dad had this close friend, Mrs. Elizabeth Pooley. She was a wee Scottish woman.
A wee Scottish one.
Sort of a babysitter, I guess, is what Dr. Glenn Hamilton was saying. So it was noted that when Mrs. Pooley was around, and remember she was a pure Scot, she had a heavy Scottish brogue. The planchette on the Ouija board apparently went nuts.
Yeah. I did see that, yeah.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to understand her, maybe.
I know, I'm like...
So Dr. T.G. Hamilton also experimented with mental telepathy with his United Church minister, Reverend Daniel Norman McLaughlin.
I'm surprised the minister actually would do that.
I'm surprised he would agree to that.
Seriously, eh? That's like so anti-religion.
I know.
Right? I mean,
So basically, telepathy or thought transference involves communication from one mind to another through the mental rather than sensory channels. The two men tried to send mental messages to each other through different rooms rather than merely receiving public messages through the Ouija board. By restricting the conditions so misinterpretation could be avoided, they soon became convinced that their telepathic experiments were successful. Dr. T.G. Hamilton was becoming more critical of his psychic work, though. Somewhat reluctantly, in 1921, T.G. initiated his investigation into telekinesis, the movement of physical objects through mental rather than physical activity. And despite his waning interest, Dr. T.G. Hamilton received a message in early 1923 through table wraps that said, "Go on with your work. Go on with your work." Within a year, this message was to stimulate a whole new direction of study for the Hamiltons. Mrs. Poole introduced two other Scottish ladies. Mm-hmm. They were sister-in-laws. I started watching Outlander a couple months ago, and I started talking with a Scottish brogue. I find that odd.
Sister-in-laws.
Two sister-in-laws, both named Mrs. Marshall. The ladies started to work with the Hamiltons in 1928.
28?
28, aye. The larger of the two had a name given by the psychic
the
controls.
Larger of the two.
That's a nice way to
It's
describe.
like you say the fat one.
Oh my god! I'm just, this is my research here. I would never say
chubby one.
Yeah.
Mrs. What's her face?
At least they didn't say ugly.
I know.
The ugly red-headed one with the mole on her forehead.
I know.
Anyway, so basically there's the two referred to, the larger and the smaller. The smaller was Mercedes. Mercedes.
She was the smaller one?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Sucks to be her.
Yeah.
Due to the failing health, Mrs. Poole had to cut back on her own involvement, and unfortunately she retired in 1933. So basically, Mary Marshall had a particular strike of luck. Mercedes, sorry. Mercedes. Of luck during the voice box, and as well as the infamous teleplasms. So basically, this is when the seances began, and the major purpose of the seances was the building up of the teleplasms and their production, but supposedly required considerable amount of energy itself from, again, they got Mary. I guess maybe she was referred to Mary and Mercedes. Yeah. About this time, other observations were reported concerning supernormal light, which was psychic-like. A light varying between a dull glow and a brightly illuminated watch dial infrequently appeared about the foot from Mary Marshall as low and as a few inches from the floor to a position with her head. And sometimes it moved rapidly, sometimes only slowly. Sometimes only the sitters saw it, because they had other people that would sit in with them. Dr. T.G. was never able to photograph it, unfortunately. And then again...
Did you see the amount of camera equipment they had upset there, though?
They had lots.
Can
you imagine the time
of ancient
and
photography machine, right?
I discussed this a little further up. Can you imagine at the time? It would have been so expensive. Not everybody had a camera.
Oh, hell no. Especially 10, 20 of them set up on a wall?
Yeah, that's great. And then to operate each individually, because it's not like they had remotes and stuff.
How?
Yeah.
That's insane.
So, Dr. Glenn Hamilton, the son, referenced the seance in this way. He said a seance circle might be 8, 10, or 12 different people, again, preferably half female, and half male, and they would hold hands, and then the women and men would alternate. We don't understand why this is, although it was something like charging a battery for the teleplasms to appear. Several or many sittings would occur beforehand, maybe once or twice a week, to store up the necessary power. That's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Whatever that means, before the object can be achieved. It wasn't a question of just sitting for 2 or 3 hours in a darkened room and having something produced. They had to work at it pretty hard, and some of the sittings were very boring, frankly. Yeah. You sat there. I used to go half asleep in them, and there would be a little chit-chat between the different members, and they always opened the sittings with the Lord's Prayer, and they always closed it with various words that occurred in the Bible, which is the name of a very tiny village in Israel, Mizpah, M-I-Z-P-A-H. And it had a mystical meaning. The Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent from one another. And they also were encouraged to play happy type of music. And he said his dad had rigged a small electrical phonograph, and it just had one record on it all the time. Oh my God, go insane. Oh, damn golden slippers, as per Dr. Glenn Hamilton. Since music was... Miss Pa. I don't know what that... I'll have to look that up.
I have to Google that. Oh, let's Google that now.
All right. So, since music was an integral part of the seances, when a phonograph wasn't playing, the group would sing everything from calming songs such as Onto the Hills or Lead Kindly Light to other more upbeat songs such as Oh, Dem Golden Slippers. Whoa, that must have been just really cool at that time.
Must have been an awesome song.
Yeah, the song at the time, yeah.
No kidding, eh?
There was also much of foot stomping, laughing, and good humor. So basically, Dr. T.G. Hamilton, he did intend and he did document all his seances and interactions, as well as photographing as best as he could, considering photography was still in its infancy around that time. And as well, I would imagine an expensive endeavor, like we said.
Yeah.
Not everybody owned a photography, like equipment or how to use it, even for that matter.
Yeah.
But this seemed to be crucial for Dr. T.G. Hamilton. And he purchased the photography equipment that was needed. And every photograph of the darkened seance room was taken by means of removing and then replacing the lens cover of some of the cameras, with the light source being magnesium flash powder, which would create noise and smoke.
Jesus.
I'd shit my pants.
Probably. Can you imagine all the powder in there? Holy
and they'd be stoned, probably.
I know.
So, as the light. He also said that at times the small seance room was stifling hot after a shot. No shit.
Small explosions going off all over
kaboom.
the place.
Yeah. Later on, a more sophisticated type of technique that Dr. T.G. Hamilton had was a pneumatic control of the exposure mechanism through the air pressure coming from a noisy compressor downstairs. That must have been an interesting house to walk by. Ultimately, a handheld remote control unit and fast-firing flashbulbs were used. In rapid succession, pictures were taken. Whether or not that was intended, however, this gave results of the supposed construction of teleplasm after exposure to white light.
Mm-hmm. What year was that they started doing that? Out of curiosity, was it in the 20s or late 20s?
26, I think.
Yeah, something like that, eh?
So, photography at that time was just so brand new.
Absolutely.
It wasn't still with the guy under the curtain. Yeah, I think so. Let's see here. Okay. One of the more successful interactions was through Dawn Marshall. The spirit was known as Walter. She would channel and would insist on specific instructions for the success of the seances that Walter attended. Quite early, he convinced Dr. T.G. Hamilton that successful results would only be achieved only if everyone followed his directions completely. For without this obedience, either the teleplasm would be delayed or he would simply leave. Well, Walter had an attitude.
Walter.
Dr. T.G. Hamilton wanted to ensure utmost integrity for these experiments and to ensure precautions that there was no fraud. He wanted to prevent any type of deception. So one of the ways he did this, he enlisted a friend, a prominent Winnipeg lawyer by the name of Isaac Pitbaldo. I think that's a firm right now, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah. To come to the seances with the helpers. They would seal the doors and hinges of the rooms and the windows to the room. And then it was on the second floor.
Everyone in.
Yeah, I know. Nice, eh? Hopefully the fire didn't set off.
Eh?
Yeah.
Lock everyone in.
Especially with the magnesium fireworks happening there. Claustrophobic. Yeah. PTSD. After the work was over, the seals were all put on, and he personally examined all the mediums that went into the other participants. Hello, baby. With the other sitters, Pitt Baldo ensured that the female participants would be, how convenient, would be examined in a private room by one of the other women in the group. Okay, that's good, yeah. Often a medium would be disrobed with the upper portion of her body sponged. Ooh.
My God. What is the purpose of this?
Ew.
To watch the
That's the makings of a porno with all those,
oh my God.
with those photographies going on there.
They were enjoying themselves.
Oh my God. What time are we at here?
I don't know what time oh my God.
Oh, we're rounding out here.
Rounding the bend.
So often a medium would be disrobed with the upper portion of her body sponged. And pasties applied. And then they were trussed down to the Curtis Hotel for the 5 o'clock show.
With golden slippers playing in the background. We're going to have to go with that song now.
My God.
Yeah, no
kidding, right?
I have to listen to them.
She'd be the 5 o'clock feature of the Curtis down the highway.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. So after which she would be dressed in silk bloomers with a loose sleeveless gown supplied by Lillian. Bow chicka wah wah.
Them golden. Oh my God.
Golden slippers.
Oh, no, that can't
Are you
it.
going to Google it? No.
I am Googling it.
Oh,
At least
good.
in 1909.
I got to know now. If suspicion was to be directed, sure, you could play it now too. If suspicion was to be directed toward anyone, of course, it would be most likely towards the mediums. Dawn and Mary Marshall weren't paid in cash. However, they were treated on their birthdays and at Christmas, since logically these ladies were the ones that would be fraudulent if they had something monetarily to gain from the sessions.
All right, yeah.
They had no financial incentive or motives to trick the others. As well, word of the occurrences happening at the Hamilton House spread through North America and overseas. Many people arrived in Winnipeg. Wow. And why? No, I'm just joking. I love Winnipeg. And came to Hamilton House, some attending sittings, some even taking their own photographies of the proceedings. And 3 of the most notable people that I could find was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He came in 1923.
That's insane, eh?
He wrote the Sherlock Holmes stories. Did you know that Ian Fleming, sidebar, wrote the James Bond novels, and he partly placed it on William H. Stevenson, the Intrepid Spy, in Winnipeg here too? Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, I had to throw that in there. And also there was Dr. and Mrs. L.R.G. Crandon in 1926, and they were the ones that were associated with the Houdini versus Marjorie controversy, because, you know, he had wanted to find his mom and stuff after she passed, and then his wife tried to find him after.
Yeah.
And then the third one was the Right Honorable William Lyon Mackenzie King in 1933, and he was the former Prime Minister of Canada and then leader of the opposition, but then
insane.
He became the Prime Minister once again.
Yeah.
So basically. So in May, June, and July of 1932, Arthur Conan Doyle actually returned to Hamilton House through the seances, but he died in July of 1930. So meaning that he came after he died, he returned in spirit form. Yes. An important category of people coming to the Hamilton House were lots of visitors. And they were channelers, and they were sensitives, and mediums, and they came to sit in and witness. A lot of them, you know, they'd hold hands with the helpers, and I'm not getting into everything they did because it was just part of it, right? So basically you had Elizabeth Pooley, known as Elizabeth M. You had Mary Marshall. Oh, I see how that goes. Okay. Mary Marshall was known as Dawn, and then Susan Marshall, which was Mary's sister-in-law, was known as Mercedes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
A lot of name trading there. Got me confused.
Well, you're not kidding.
More wine, please. Code names were supposed to be given to the medium so that they would not be alerted to and distracted by hearing their own names spoken while that they were in a trance. Oh, I get it. Okay. An interesting aspect of the Hamilton research that was to use multiple mediums. And then 2 of the sitters were Dr. James A. Hamilton, which was a brother, and also the young Dr. Glenn Hamilton, which was the son.
So we have like Doctor.
Captain. Recorders at the time were Lillian, his wife, the secretary, which is Elaine Sykes, and the Margaret, which was Dr. T.G. Hamilton's daughter. 2 of the major controls in the Hamilton research were Walter Stinson. He was the deceased brother of Boston psychic Marjorie Crandon, and as well as Black Cloud, and an Aboriginal spirit, both of whom primarily came through Mary Marshall. 2 others were Lucy, and she was unknown but presumably deceased Irish woman connected with a religious order, and Katie King, the presumed daughter of John King, alias Henry Morgan, a buccaneer. Buccaneer. Anyway, that's a joke I won't get into. Of the Spanish Main and eventual governor of Jamaica. both of whom primarily came through Susan Marshall. Scrutineers at the time were prominent lawyer Isaac Pitbaldo and Ada Turner, head of the English department of the Winnipeg Secondary School. Experimenters were typically either T.G. Hamilton or, in his absence, Winnipeg pediatrician pathologist Dr. Bruce Chone.
Oh.
As Dr. Glenn described seances.
I'm going to have to Google him.
Yeah, I've never heard of that name.
No.
Well, I don't know all the names. But
no, that's interesting, though.
it was thought that through these investigations that Dr. T.G. Hamilton was convinced that the human spirit traveled beyond the physical body. He had enough proof, scientific proof, in his mind that one could communicate with the dead, more specifically dead people, with the ability could contact the dead, and that there was a survival of the human spirit after death. It was long held that these experiments concreted Dr. T.G. Hamilton's belief that his... he's not buried in the backyard under concrete. Dr. T.G.'s belief... That's why his son was never far from him. I'm sorry, that was tacky. Dr. T.G. Hamilton's belief that this departed Tyler's son Arthur did in fact live on in the afterlife, and that Arthur was alive in another world or dimension. That's so sad.
That's
sad. So sad.
I know, eh?
Heartbreaking, you know?
Yeah.
So basically...
You search for your child.
They did.
Yeah.
So basically the investigations of Dr. T.G. Hamilton were wide in scope and many in number, and Dr. T.G. Hamilton preferred to use the term psychic research with regards to investigation work because he felt the label spiritualism meant to form a religion, and Dr. T.G. Hamilton did not like that type of attitude towards his work. He was interested in trying to do things as carefully and openly and honestly, of course, as he could, and that was quoted by Dr. Glenn Hamilton.
Yeah.
The majority of his investigation of psychic events had been performed between 1819 and 1935. It was from that pivotal public appearance in 1926 that drew more attention into his direction, from which Dr. T.G. Hamilton then became a national and international spokesperson until his death and then in 1931 he became the first president of the Winnipeg Society for Psycho?
Psycho? What?
Of psychological, psychical research. It's a funny word. I don't think that's a real word. Unfortunately, on April 7th, 1935, Dr. T.G. Hamilton died of a heart attack after a year of failing health. He was 62 years old. Mm-hmm. That's pretty young.
That's pretty young. That's very young. Wow.
Another post-death visit was Dr. T.G. Hamilton himself, who came through a seance the night of his funeral in 1935, as well in a picture-producing seance on May 22nd, 1939, and in numerous scripts written by his wife Lillian between 1940 and 1944. After her husband's death, Lillian continued with his work until her death on September 18th, 1956, and then their daughter carried on the family's legacy of the Hamilton research through talks and writings for the next 30 years, and I believe she died in 1986 or something like that. Along with his many articles on psychic research written by Dr. T.G. Hamilton in the years prior to his death, he is most renowned for his posthumous volume Intention and Survival in 1942, and this represented his most complete summary of his work, and obviously it was he didn't do it, his wife did it after he passed. So basically, from Dr. T.G. Hamilton's written journals prior to his death, we spend a while on Earth growing up and having our families, learning, earning a living. What's the point of it all? It's all about as pointless as the breeding of cattle if you don't take the developed mind and spirit. Our destiny, to me, seems to be after the body stops. Because it's like any machine, it's good for many years, and then it's worn out. What happens to all the effort that's gone into the building of the mind and the spirit? It would be a great waste. What the ultimate purpose of life is, I don't know. What we're told over and over again is that there is an afterlife. 7 years ago now, just didn't occur to me as I was going to die, and I didn't die. Now I have come much closer to death. This winter I had a bad heart attack. I was in the hospital 3 times. I think what you basically fear is not the unknown so much as the pain and discomfort of it. I think I will be met by some being that will be my friend. It won't be some relative. I've read enough of psychics to realize that you're not usually met by someone you know well. This would be a shock. So that was written by him. So basically in 1979, that's okay. In 1979, daughter Margaret donated the papers, photos, and paraphernalia of Dr. T.G. Hamilton's psychic research to the archive and special collection of the University of Manitoba. They revealed that T.G. Hamilton was a man of high integrity with a solid reputation. As well, it was a joint effort because Lillian provided him with ideas, direction, and security all the way through his investigations. Because of his ill health, Dr. Glenn Hamilton, the Dr. T.G.'s son, retired and sold the Hamilton House in 1980.
1980, wow.
So basically, the research that I
donated along with the
manuscripts. I know.
Why not?
So basically, I just wanted to give credit. This information was found from the Manitoba Historical Society. Basically, it was compiled by James B. Nichols, and a lot of it is sitting at the University of Manitoba. If anybody has any more want or interest in looking at the files.
Pictures, lots of pictures.
Tons of pictures. Archives and special collections. Basically, one person who's responsible for a lot of this, she had a thesis or something done at the University of Manitoba. She had a presentation last year. I didn't get to it. Her name is Linda Horodecki. She's from the Northeast Winnipeg Historical Society, I guess, which represents Elmwood. Also, another source for information is, I guess, a granddaughter. Her name is Janice Hamilton. She resides in Montreal. She is a writer, genealogist, and photographer.
Excellent.
Currently, the Society for Psychical, I guess that is a word. Psychical research in England. They are entirely devoted to the psychic research carried out by the Hamiltons. I would love to get into that house. I would love to feel that.
I was just thinking, she's a photographer. I wonder if she has any old cameras. Can you imagine?
That'd be nice. That'd be really nice.
Cool. Yeah.
They'd have to be somewhere, for sure.
Be somewhere,
for sure.
Maybe there's still somewhere in the basement.
At some point, I'd like to come back to this topic and
absolutely,
get more information. If anybody out there has personal stories, we'd love to hear.
Yeah.
As well, I'd like to reach out to the Winnipeg Paranormal group because they actually have done an on-site visit in 2010.
Oh, did they?
They did, yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, that was 9 years ago.
Well, yeah,
so
right.
I wonder if it's the same members and stuff. I'd love to have them to come on to one of our future podcasts and discuss more what they felt or what they saw.
Yeah. Excellent.
You looked over your shoulder. Was there something there?
Heard a noise.
Here's a spare seat. Come on in. Sit on down. Oh, the door didn't open. Just walk through. It's okay. It's good. The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're hitting the 1 hour mark.
We are. I think we've chatted.
Crap. So, I mean, we're a little zany, we're a little crazy, but we do take this stuff seriously.
Absolutely.
We have a natural curiosity.
We do.
So, if, again, anybody would like to reach out to us, if you know any notable buildings in the city here that you'd like us to investigate, and again, we're not paranormal investigators, but we'd like to do research. Yeah.
Stories, good stories.
Good stories. Please shoot them to us. What is our email address again?
Giving Up the Ghost Podcast at gmail.com.
That's right. Or we're on Twitter. We're on Facebook as well. But somebody stole our email. Some bastard stole our email.
Yeah, can you imagine?
So we had to make it so long for you, sober people, to email us and had to put podcast in there. Otherwise, we're just known as Giving Up the Ghost at Facebook and Giving Up the Ghost at Twitter. So please send us your info.
Absolutely.
No dick pics. And I'm sorry. But in any event, thank you for joining us. We plan on doing this more often and more stories locally. And thank you. Peace out. And we don't really have a sign off yet. Take care. Chat with you soon. And never give up your ghost.
Absolutely.